So Karen mentioned 7 thematic areas. So we put those thematic areas in rows from 1 to 7. If you look at the table right here. Let me just repeat the 7. That's demand reduction. The second is availability of and access to controlled substances exclusively for medical and scientific purposes. The third is supply reduction. Fourth is cross-cutting issues, human rights, youth, women, etc. And the fifth is still cross-cutting issues, but on evolving trends. The sixth is strengthening cooperation, international cooperation. And the seventh is offering or developing alternative development interventions for those who, for example, grow marijuana, example. Now, as you go across the columns, so we expanded in each of the thematic areas. The UNGAS makes several operational recommendations. And I provide one example. This is just one example. I'm going to show you the whole table later, but here there's one example. So under demand reduction, one operational recommendation that UNGAS makes is provide healthy lifestyles through effective, comprehensive, scientific, evidence-based demand reduction initiatives. Now, all of those have are still broken down into several components. And I give the example for this recommendation. So some of the components, this is not all of it yet, some of the components are healthy social environments, education and vocational training, develop supportive parenting, improve recreational facilities, and workplace programs. Now what we did, so if you take column 1, 2, and 3, they're kind of the log frame already, kind of. And you can develop a whole theory of change around that. Now what we expanded that table further and examined or tried to discover in the Philippines, what are the applicable laws, policies, and guidance that the Philippines has already developed towards it. If you look at this, and these are just examples, or one example each, to provide healthy social environments, the Philippines came up with a universal health care law. For education and vocational training, the PADS and DepEd issuances. Supportive parenting, there's the DSWD-AO 29. And to improve recreational facilities, there's the law creating the National Sports Academy. So there's a section there that provides for recreational facilities towards drug demand reduction. And there are workplace programs. So the PADS, there's the DDB Board Regulation 13, and several other LGU administrative orders. Column 1, 2, 3, the next column, we also listed down the UN tools that were developed out of the, compliance to the UNGAS recommendations. And here some examples are, oh wait. Oops. Okay, some examples are a UNESCO and UNODC developed manual on substance use in the education sector. You have drug use prevention documents, etc. Trainers manuals, prevention campaign manuals, strong families, etc. And so there's a whole set of tools already developed that are evidence-based that can be used for the interventions that are going to be done, that are done by the government. So this is how we use the matrix and the information that the recommendations on the UNGAS. Yeah. I'll show you the whole table. Oops. Here it is. So there's a whole, if you look at the colored column, that one whole thing there is just demand reduction. And there's already a host of applicable laws that the Philippines had already done in answer to the operational recommendations under the UNGAS. And here we will see that we have some gaps in certain areas. And some of those areas are in the harm, as in other countries, are in the harm reduction aspect of it. HIV for people who use drugs, HIV services, prevention services. Yeah, and some others. So the blank rows are gaps in the applicable laws from the Philippines.